What's going on, everybody? Prophecy Wiz back at it again with yet another video, helping you guys out with the Voiceless deck. I played 30 hours straight as a 30-hour stream on Saturday, Sunday last weekend. I have been streaming every day for 2 to 4 plus hours for the last 2 weeks. If you guys enjoy this content and content like this, please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as check out my Twitch linked, where I stream 7 days a week. Generally, it's 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And today, I have a video that I'm going to be showing you guys some of the tech cards I've been enjoying and explaining some of these cards and why you need to be playing them currently in the Voiceless deck. Also, be sure to stick around until the end so I can tell you guys where I put these cards in my deck list, what cards I replaced for these cards, and also have a special announcement coming at the end, so you guys are not going to want to miss it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Some of these cards I have been playing before, but there are definitely were some new discoveries, and I wanted to make sure you guys were fully filled in so that you guys can make the most appropriate decision based on when you're playing these cards. So the first card that I wanted to talk about here is Drone Lockbird. I think Drone Lockbird is just the best #1 hand trap right now. This, if you are playing Voice or not, just should be a card that that is in your deck somewhere. So Drone Lockbird right now, in my personal opinion, is the only card like completely on its own that I feel like can consistently stop a lot from the YuGiOh deck. So I think that the YuGiOh deck is like definitely the strongest position deck right now. And even going into the next format, I think Snake Eyes is obviously getting a huge buff going into the next format, but I think Snake Eyes has a way harder time playing into the new Chummy, where YuGiOh is still, they can put up 5 interruptions with just giving you 2 to 3 draws. So I personally think that Droll is super well positioned. Like, if they normal summon Beckoning Beast and search the spell, and you Droll them there, they are going to pass on like nearly nothing, right? They're not getting the Yama search. Like, at best, they're gonna put up like maybe a Caesar, but that is perfectly fine. Like, it's very likely they're not summoning Phantom. They're definitely not searching with Yama, obviously, and yeah, it's literally one of the only things that I think like can individually pass their turn. And one of the other things, just in general about Droll, that I think is a huge deal is that Drone Lockbird kind of feels Max C-esque in the when you go first with it. So when you go first with Drone Lockbird, it's super hard to play past your board in general, but when you also have a Drone Lockbird on top of it, it is just game breaking. Like, it's so hard to like do anything to the end board, especially without searching cards. So that is a really big deal. Another deck is Snake Eye, and Snake Eye in the current format I think is like massively weaker than it was before. However, one thing without like the hard opening of the Ash is that they are crutching a lot harder on, like, if you have like an answer for Witch, it's very likely that they have to use something like Bonfire, and if you do Droll them on Bonfire, like, they just don't really do anything. Like, they're just passing for a turn, and they're letting you go first, going second, right? Like, you take the extra card, like, now you start with 5 cards, and you can just set up your board, right? So I think Droll, also you can attack for 8,000 with just a lot of the 2-card combos, which is definitely super relevant. So going into the next format, even though the new Chummy is going to be out, I think that the Droll is still really good because it lines up really well with the new continuous Snake Eye Azamina card, because that's like going to be the best starter in the deck. And when they search the spell with the continuous, then you Droll them. Like, you're not doing any Snake Eye combos. Like, they can do a little bit, but it's actually pretty game breaking. Like, they can set up like exactly an Omni Negate, but like that's perfectly fine. They were setting up Omni Negate Caesar, you know, IP Princess, the Silhouette Rabbit, and more with without the drill. So I think Droll is insane to that. And one last reason that I think you guys should be playing Droll Knockbird in the Voiceless Voice deck specifically for this one is that I have I grinded all the way to top down on DB right now. Check out the stream, especially this weekend. I should be streaming 12 hours on Saturday, maybe 15, and then definitely 12 hours again on Sunday. So I will be playing a ton. If you guys want to come and watch me play the Voiceless Voice deck, I'll be right there. And in playing the deck just so much, I'm going to play it for months, but especially this format, I feel like a lot of people have been playing the tier deck, and I do actually think Droll is really good against tier. A lot of them are playing the Crystal Beast cards that Jesse was playing. A lot of them are playing the Gold Sark package with the Emcetis. They're all playing the field spell that searches. All the like a lot of the spells and traps, when they get milled, they search. They can be playing 3 of the cache field spell and then be playing like Fenrir to search the tier cache or just search the tier cache. It's like they have so many search cards, it really does like cut down like a ton of what they are trying to do. So that is definitely like one of the harder matchups because it's just all gas, no brakes. And I think having Droll Knockbird in that matchup is very important. So I would personally suggest, definitely playing Droll Knockbird. And I wanted you guys to be aware of like how important that card really is right now. So that was the first card. The second card I have here that I did want to mention. This one's going to be a little bit quicker, but is Droll Knockbird. Sorry, not Droll Knockbird. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, I think right now is actually really poorly positioned. I think though that is important to consider is I think that the Snake Eye deck, the one card starters that the Snake Eye deck are getting are better than they have ever been, and with those cards like Witch and Wanted can also get to the combo, and essentially they're trading an Appaloosa that like most of the times they were summoning a 2-negate Appaloosa, and now they're just putting up an Omni Negate, but I think the Omni Negate, like an Omni Negate is arguably better than 2 monster negations. And the thing with the Omni Negate is the continuous resets itself at the end phase, and then the spell adds itself back and sends back the Omni Negate. So essentially what the new combo gives you is an Omni Negate every turn forever. And I think that's a really big deal because endless Omni Negates is nothing to scoff at, and the combo is insane. So I do think that it is important to consider Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit being able to, when they activate the new starter, especially because they might get greedy and summon it off of, or like set it off of Wanted, like Wanted for Witch set it, or just Witch and set it, and then when they hard open it, if they do use it, they, especially if they Witch, Witch send a card, set it, activate it, send another card, and then you Ogre, like you took 3 cards out of their hand with that Ogre. So I think that is like super advantageous, and I think it's definitely worth considering. The reason I'm bringing this up now, even though this is about just this current format, I will make more videos obviously about the next format when that comes out. I did want to mention it now because if you guys have events coming up, this is something I think is like a really important game theory thing, is that if you guys are going to, say, YCS Niagara, I'm going, if you guys see me there, say hello. I think that if you're going to be playing, like, if you know that you're going to want to respect that deck and play the Ogre specifically at that event, then I think you should be playing it right now when you are testing, because the YCS is gonna likely be the most important thing that you're testing for. If you're going to a YCS before this, obviously I do not suggest playing Ogre, but if you do plan on playing Ogre at that time, then I think you should be playing Ogre right now. The reason being is that I don't think you should be comfortable with, like, you should get comfortable with certain cards in your side deck that you're going to play with, and then having those cards in your side deck can completely skew how you feel about a matchup, because certain cards can be so game-breaking. Like, for example, if you have, like, a card like Bell against Labyrinth, like, Bell is the Egyptian god card against Labyrinth, so, like, if you are playing Bell all month and you're like, man, I don't know, Lab, I never lose to Lab, and then all of a sudden, like, you don't have a lot of quick plays to actually deal with their stuff, and they are, like a lot better against you because Ogre is useless and Bell is good. Like, you need to be finding out that the deck doesn't need the Bell before that. Not playing with Bell and then just like all of a sudden playing Ogre. Like, you want to see how good Ogre is because the new cards that come out, like a lot of these decks are not going to change. Like the Bell deck, like that deck's going to be the very same. And one thing I think a lot of people have been asking me about Ogre, which is part of the reason I also wanted to put it in this video. I think Ogre, you know, it is interesting, but so for starters, like Tempai, a lot of the times they don't even need to use the field spell effect, and they only have one Prosperity and one field spell. And additionally, the like all the main deck hand traps, I feel like were pretty standard that we were playing. So like Ogre is like more of a side deck card if you wanted to add in more hand traps. Part of my problem with siding in Ogre against something like Tempai is that if you're siding in against Tempai, like you're siding in a card that is bad into a shifter deck for like they may not even be using the field spell. So that just is like bad news bears to me personally. I would not suggest siding this in against Tempai. People have mentioned Snake Eye and they're like, oh, you could hit the IP, but like I'm not, like, to me now it's being used as a breaker, and like if I was to decide to play a breaker, I would play a better card than that. You know what I mean? I'd just play Dark Ruler, since like you don't really, like, it's not like you're like needing to game all the time. So if I personally was, like, I wouldn't want to, I don't think it's particularly really good against Snake Eye right now. However, the next format I think is insane. The other thing is against you Bell, sometimes it can hit you Bell, but it like it really wants to line up with the Nightmare Pain, and part of my issue with that is like oftentimes they're playing one Nightmare Pain and they're just going Lotus into Spirit for a Nightmare Pain, and then they, before they use the Nightmare Pain, can just send the Lotus and the Spirit into a Phantom of Bell, which can negate an Ogre. So to me that's like a bit questionable, and I'm not sure about it, but I think that the new Snake Eye card is actually game-breaking. Like, genuinely, I went over it on stream. If you guys want to check that out, the VODs are always there. I never take the VODs down. So, I went over some of the combos and the lines and looked at that deck a little bit deeper. I've done it a few times, but I looked at it already yesterday. And I think that that deck is actually going to be better than it was at Nationals. Like, I think the Snake Eye deck is actually genuinely better than it has ever been when that card comes out. So I think that is no joke. And a lot of people are going to like that deck. Like a lot of the people that would have been playing Bell now are going to play that deck, and everybody who played Snake Eye before is going to play that deck. So that's definitely something to consider. There's a lot more things to consider. We'll talk about the format when it comes, but I did want to talk to you guys quickly about the Ghost Ogre because I thought it was important as I seen those combos and stuff here. So I wanted to make sure you guys are prepared and doing testing the appropriate way. You know what I mean? Is if the biggest events you're going to are in that next format, then, and you know what I mean, you decide you want to respect Snake Eye, then maybe test this out now to see, can I accept having Ogre and like be a weaker card in certain matchups than it would have been. So the next card we are going to talk about is we'll talk about Omega next. You know, kind of go down the line, and then we'll go to the next two quickly. So Omega, I realized I had talked about this before in one of my deck profiles. However, I've had like other like exact experiences with it that I thought were definitely like relevant to mention. So like obviously before I mentioned that like it can shuffle back like a princess or the like the copy of original, so that like they can't search Snake Eye on the next turn, which I think is really important. It also comes up to like recycle your engines. So, like if they pop like your blessings, then it's like very important to be able to get that back. It's come up on numerous occasions that I've used like Nadir to dump and Tis, pop a back row, you know, use a Saphira to search a Seravis, and then send Omega and Tis to pop another back row, use the Omega, send back in Tis, and then normal summon Diviner, and like you have the Seravis protection from any like targeting protection for the Maximus and the Diviner, and then you use Diviner to pop another back row, and it's just like game. So that has come up quite a few times. It can send back any of your extra deck cards. It's just a really neat utility card that comes up with like a lot more than you might think that it would. So another thing is that it makes the branded matchup, makes you be able to fully use Nadir because you can dump it, and then shuffle back one of the cards that they dump, and then because all their cards generally trigger at the end phase, it's like you summon Skull Guardian before you do the combo, and then you dump that, you shuffle one back at the end phase. When they activate the other one, you just negate it with Skull Guardian. So I thought that was also really good. And then the other really good application with it is that if they summon, so like, especially if you like open the Nadir, then like the Nadir can immediately dump an Antis, pop the pop the copy of like Caesar that they're ending on, because the Fiendsmith cards are now ending on Caesar very consistently in almost every deck that they're playing them in. So you just pop the Caesar, summon Maximus, dump Omega and Herald, search a ritual card, and then the Omega can shuffle back the one copy of Engraver. And why that's really important, like you might be like, oh yeah, cool, like obviously I would have thought about that. But one thing that I think you may not have considered is that if they use the extra deck engine for it, then like you are shuffling back that one Engraver, and they can't, because like if they went to their turn, right, like they summoned Moon Goddess and then they summoned the Requiem, and then they, you know, usually they summon Necro Equip, which is not a Light Fiend by the way, and then they make the Caesar or whatever. And in those, like if you shuffle back that Engraver, they have, when they summon back the Engraver to make the Caesar, they only sent back either Moon Goddess or the Link one, but they couldn't have sent back both, which means they can make Moon Goddess now with 2 monsters, but they can't make the Link one, and they can only make the Link one if they have a Light Fiend. So you're now essentially putting them on top deck this engine again, which I feel like is really good. Like that's super strong. The fact that they like now have to draw these cards again, and like not only do they not have the resource in the graveyard for the next turn, but they have to like draw it. They can't get to it with their extra deck again. So I thought that was really really neat interaction that I have found and used a ton of times with Omega. I send Omega almost every day for different situations. It also matters if you do happen to open Prosperity, which matters less now that it's a 1, but if you do happen to open Prosperity, it's like a nice little target that you could send, especially if you're like going second and you need it. So I think that Omega is going to be a mandatory card. And the next card I wanted to talk to you guys about was Ghost Spell. Ghost Spell, I think, is the most underrated hand trap right now. I know this card I have talked about before in profiles, but just bear with me because I think it's very likely that I'm going to tell you guys some sort of interactions that you guys wouldn't have thought about that I have just found from playing so much that are super relevant, because I feel like a lot of people are just not, I don't know, I think a lot of people just misjudge Bell as not as strong as it is. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were fully aware of like a lot of the situations that you could use for it. So Bell, obviously, best position deck right now. You know, when they field spell, dump Spirit, Spirit Effect, you can Bell that. Why that's obviously important is because now you either force them to like have another card in their hand that they can use for Phantom and then use that card to summon the Phantom, or it allows them to, sorry about that, looks like Dueling Book timed out on me. Must mean this video is going a long amount of time. So another way that you could use Bell against that deck is you could Bell the Yama, and I feel like belling the Yama is super strong because it like cuts them off from getting the trap card, an additional resource, and sometimes they won't like make Blue Dog then. And this works in the Fiendsmith or in the U-Bell deck, but it's like these are like Fiendsmith cards, is that you can like when they summon the Necroquip and then they activate the Engraver, you can Bell that, and then like oftentimes they can't make Caesar, they can't make Sequentia, which they would have done in the U-Bell deck to make the Link 2 and then summon the Area Leader. So I think being able to Bell that is really important. Like it has like a ton of interaction against that deck. Obviously it gets off Squirmer. Like there's tons of cards that you could Bell in that deck. And I think that Bell is super strong there. I think against the Snake Eye deck. So the Snake Eye deck now is like leaning a lot harder on drawing cards like Wanted and Witch, because they only have the one copy of Ash and one copy of Poplar. So if they activate Wanted in the draw phase, I'm immediately belling that for sure. I think being able to bell that is insane. Being able to bell the OSS in the graveyard on their next turn is really strong as well, if they get that far into the combo. Being able to bell the Fire King cards, which are like a lot of the the decks that are playing Snake Eye right now are definitely just playing the Fire Kings. You can bell Flame Burge, obviously. Tons and tons of good interactions there, even into the next format. A lot of the times that Continuous is going to want to search Wanted, and then the Wanted is going to get belled, and they are going to do nothing. So that I think that was really strong. Something that like it has like 4 to 5 different ways. Like obviously the Fiendsmith card's also in the Snake Eye deck, so like it has 4 to 5 really strong uses against the YuBell deck, and then it has like 4 or 5 really strong uses against the Snake Eye deck as well. So I thought that that was definitely worth mentioning. And then against the Runic deck, so because we don't like generally side a lot of spell and trap removal, I think it's really neat that against the Runic deck, they will oftentimes want to like use as many Runics as they can, and then use the field spell to shuffle them back and draw like 2 to 3 cards. You could bell the field spell effect at any time. So I think being able to bell that and stop them from drawing 3 cards is like oftentimes going to put them on like open another Runic card, like top deck a Runic card, and also it stopped them from 3 draws, which is, that's just insane. And then a lot of the people I've seen, like a really favorite deck right now has been the Runic Whitewood deck. And obviously you can stop the Runic Field spell in that as well. And I also think it's really cool that you can stop the Whitewood Synchro 8. So like the Synchro 8, when you activate a card or effect, is going to summon something from the extra deck. So like generally on your turn, he's going to like want to summon like the Book of Moon. Or what they're going to want to do is summon like the Zapper Shrimp, and then the Zapper Shrimp into like a Chaos Angel type deal. And I think that that is like really strong. It's like multiple interruptions, and when they activate that, you can just bell it. So that is something that I haven't seen like a lot of people notice, is that interaction. But I think that interaction is like also really strong. I feel like it makes like the Runic matchups, it makes this a really good card into the Runic matchups. I think this card also is like really strong into Tier Element, and I think Tier is like one of the hardest matchups for this deck. So I feel like that's like very relevant to consider, is that this card is good into one of the harder matchups for this deck. Obviously in the mirror, you know, if you're playing this deck, you should think it's one of the better decks, if not the best deck. And in the mirror, obviously it stops Saphira, Pre-Prep, Nadir, a lot of good cards if they happen to miss chain with their Skull Guardian low package, then you can bell low, and that's not a bad trade. Against the Memento deck, which is another decent deck, like that deck really doesn't, that deck is always wanting to fusion summon, like that's its main thing. It's like it's a fusion deck, and because they can pop on resolution even if they haven't destroyed cards yet, if they activate the fusion spell, you can bell that. So I think that that's actually really good. Like when they use the fusion spell to be able to bell it is pretty insane to me. I'm a huge fan of that. I think against the Branded deck now, they're leaning way harder on like dumping the Branded Fusion and then using the counter trap to add it back to your hand. You could surely bell that. And if you do use another hand trap against them and they happen to be able to dump the Branded Fusion and then use like Fusion Duplication, you could bell that. Obviously, if they don't have Lost, you or if you have like a Valorous or an Imperm or a Mourner or whatever for the Bestial Lubellion, you can bell Branded in red. So there's tons of good bell targets in that deck. Obviously, Egyptian God card against Labyrinth. You can stop Big Welcome, everybody knows that. Against Gimmick Puppet, that still has 1 card FTK. The field spell is 1 card FTK. When they normal summon the level 4, it dumps for cost, by the way, which is very important to note. It dumps the Rogue Doll for cost, and then you can bell the Rogue Doll in the graveyard to add back, and they just like generally are probably doing nothing. And the last really important thing about Bell right now is that like it sometimes, like especially going second, lets you play more aggressively for game. Because if Bell has like an application in a matchup, it also is relevant that they are probably still going to like Bestials against you, whether or not they're going first or second. And if they, like if you go to your turn and you're like, oh, I can attack it for 8,000, but I could, like I might have to play Nua Bestial, like nope, you could Bell Bestial, so that is also like really strong in my opinion. I think that was really important. I feel like Bell is like the most underrated hand trap right now. That's not what I'm saying the best. Like, I think the best is Droll, and I think like the ones, a lot of the ones we've been playing before were really good. But Bell is super strong card right now, so I think that's like super relevant. And the last card I wanted to talk about was Typhon. So this came up because I had somebody in chat was like, oh, I was talking about flex spots that we have, and somebody had mentioned that Typhon was a flex spot. And Typhon right now is actually definitely mandatory in the Voiceless Voice deck specifically. I think it's actually really insane in a lot of decks though. So in the Voiceless Voice deck specifically, I think that Typhon is absolutely a certified requirement because a lot of the decks now are going to want to end on like their Fiendsmith engine, especially if you hand trap them once or twice. What they are going to want to do is like just end on Caesar with the Fiendsmiths. And Typhon, obviously you can just normal summon any hand trap and just like Typhon. And another interaction that I seen that was really nice is like if you open like low Skull Guardian or like low Barrier, low Saphira, low like any like different combinations, you know what I mean, or like Barrier with Skull Guardian or Barrier Saphira, like it could be any combination of these cards. It's not like if you could just get to the low, so like say you have low Skull Guardian for example, you can normal summon low for Barrier, and then activate Barrier effect, search Blessings, overlay Typhon attack over the Caesar, and then activate Typhon effect, bounce himself back to the extra deck, and then activate the Blessings, add back the low that you detached, and then on your opponent's turn, when they summon anything like the Engraver that they had underneath the Caesar, you get to trigger the Blessings, send the low from hand, summon the Skull Guardian, low 1, Guardian 2, Guardian search, usually like Saravis, summon back low for trap, and negative Skull Guardian trap past the Caesar, which I think is really nice, because like now generally, like whatever they can do with the like the package with the like the Fiendsmiths is like not really going to do anything. So I thought that was that's like a super important interaction, and it's also important that you're bouncing it back to the extra deck so it doesn't lock out your Skull Guardian. And yeah, being able to like crack boards with this card, I feel like because the Caesar play has just become so like standard that like this card now does need to be standard, and so like you can always just out Caesar, which I feel like is like a big deal. And don't forget to bounce back to your extra deck. In a pinch, obviously, if they summon like 2 huge things and you feel like you have to get rid of them, then like sure, Typhon can just also get rid of them and sit there. It's just like those certain interactions that I thought were really important. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Hope that you guys learned something, some sort of interactions. And I'm excited to continue bringing you guys awesome content like this. If you guys were watching the whole time, obviously you guys see my DB crashed, of course. So the list pulled up for literally 2 seconds, but the Droll and Lockbird is going to be in place of the Mulchummy spot. I tested them both together, but it just was awkward. You don't really want to Chummy into Droll, and when you open them together, it like facilitates weird spots where like you would definitely want Chummy against Snake Eye, and you would Chummy in the draw phase, and then they activate Bonfire, and on resolution we are Drolling, and now we just took 2 cards and we could have just used 1. So the Chummy came out for the Droll. Like I said, I tried to play them together, but it was just important. So definitely play Chummy over, or play the Droll over the Chummy. Droll is necessary right now. Bell we were playing before. Bell we're going to continue to play because this card is insane. And the Typhon spot is going to be for the second Dynamundo. The second Dynamundo has not come up that I've needed it absolutely 1 time in this format, and I have summoned Typhon probably 25 times at least. I summon Typhon all of the time because this card is just so well positioned right now that this card is no longer a flex spot. This card is an absolute requirement. So definitely cut the second Dynamundo. I promise you don't need it. The Dynamundo plays really hard into Bastille Spell, top deck Imperm, like so much cards that you only really summon it if you absolutely have to, and you really just don't need 2 of it. So that is where I played those cards. And for the announcement, hopefully you guys are excited about this. The next video I have is going to be coming out on Friday, and it is going to be a podcast, the first episode of my podcast, Prophecy Wiz Podcast, and it is going to be a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh podcast where I talk with some of the best players in the game, some of the best players in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and talk about the way that they look at the game, the way that I look at the game, deck theory, and you know, a bit of their backstory and all that good stuff. We have Pack is going to be on this Friday for the first episode, so super excited about that. And yeah, make sure to check out the Twitch. Tune in there. Tune in on Friday to check out that podcast if you want to, you know, like learn some more, support some more, and definitely stay tuned there because I have some really fun announcements coming out on that as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys all so much for the continued support. The community has been absolutely amazing, and I'm excited to continue this journey with you guys.